Hello. How's everyone doing? I don't think anyone's on here yet, but we'll wait. And I'm waiting for my friend Nadine. We're going to talk about Love Me again, continuing our conversation from last week. We're talking about trauma, and it's a heavy, complex topic. So we're kind of breaking it up into little digestible pieces. So, how's everyone doing? If you're joining in live, I'd love for you to say where you're from and say hey. Just waiting for Nadine to jump on and we'll get started. Hello. Thank you for joining. Just waiting for Nadine, my cohort, my friend, good friend. We're going to talk a little bit more about our trauma, and I think it's such a powerful time right now to be having this conversation, and so important. So, hi. So glad you're here. I don't know where Nadine is, but I'm so grateful that she's willing to talk through what's coming up for her as she's reading Love Me. And that's, I kind of wrote it in a way that I've shared my story, but I know there's lots of parallels people can draw. And in these conversations we're having, we're sharing our experiences, and they might be different than yours. Obviously we all have our own unique experiences, but there's a lot of parallels, a lot of things that we go through that's the same, that we can all relate to, and that's why we're sharing this. So here's Nadine. Let me bring her on. Nadine of the Calmer Self Method. She should be on in just a sec. Hi, Nadine.
Hello, Trish. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah,
I
good
think
to
we've got
see you.
someone joined us. We've got a couple of people joined, haven't we? Hello,
Yes.
Teresa, Mercurial Morph.
Yeah. Hi, Teresa.
Lovely.
Yeah.
How are you?
So, I'm so glad. Yeah, she's with us. And if you want to ask a question, we'll try to. Both of us are like trying to keep in the conversation and answer questions. It's
Yeah, talking and reading. Don't know
um,
if I can do two things at
Yeah, and
once.
I want to talk to Teresa about her handle, because Mercurial Moth, it just reminded me of, I'm so Mercury ruled, and so I'm constantly in my thoughts, and so I'm also
Oh,
navigating that every time we're having a conversation, because I want to say so much. But
oh,
anyways,
lovely.
we'll get started.
That's hi. She's saying hi.
Um,
That's a conversation for another
I
time. That'd be
know.
really interesting,
Yeah, that
actually.
would
Yeah.
be. So thank you, Nadine, for joining and doing this chit chat with me, and us doing this together. And I'm so grateful that you want to do this, and you have lots of questions as you're reading my book, Love Me. And
I do.
this is a continuation of the conversation we had last week around our trauma, and identifying it, recognizing it, healing it, why it's so important. And so I'm just grateful we're able to have this continued
Mm.
conversation together. And
So am I. I've just
yeah.
seen that Dawn's joined us. So hello, Dawn.
Hi there.
But this is part two, isn't it, of our conversation that we had last week, because it was a biggie, wasn't it, about trauma. So we decided to split it into two, didn't we? So this is our
Yeah.
second part. So yeah, it really is, isn't it? Such a subject, because so many people have had trauma in their life, and you talked about it so eloquently in your book,
Mm-hmm.
and how you sort of healed from it and that kind of thing, which
Yeah.
is what this is all about, isn't it? How sharing and talking about it is so important. But I think, I mean, really the main thing that I think is that I don't know that we, myself included, actually know how much trauma we've had in our life.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
I know I
so,
shared
yeah.
with you, didn't I? it's that kind of, do people might be listening to us going, oh, well, I haven't had any trauma. What is trauma? What do we call it? That kind of thing. And I shared with you, didn't I? And I'm happy to share with everyone the fact that when I saw a therapist decades ago, one of my many therapy sessions, she actually said to me, oh, can you tell me about the things that have been traumatic in your life? And I instantly went, I haven't had any trauma in my life.
Mm.
And I think, I'd like to perhaps if anyone could just put their hands up if they agree with that, do they feel there isn't trauma in their life? Because I honestly believed that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, and I think sometimes we block things out, but also it's just recognizing that what happens in our life can be traumatic and we don't acknowledge that, do we? We don't really see that. And that's the first step, isn't it, to healing, is acknowledging what has happened.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so much to say about that, but thank you for starting off there, because I think that's so important, and it ties back into what we were talking about last week about
Mm,
minimizing our trauma. That's a form of minimizing it, and so there's different
yeah.
degrees. So we can say that we've never really had any trauma because what we're doing is, well, we're living in a society that is constantly, well, like we're programmed to constantly compare ourselves to other people. So we're always like
Yeah.
looking at other people and their experiences, and then we look
Mm,
at ourselves and say, oh, I don't have any trauma. Like what I've been through in my life really isn't that bad, or it's not. And that's what
mm,
I did too. And even go so
yes.
far as to our subconscious can block it out as well. So there's different degrees, but just like you had said, when your therapist asked you, tell me about traumatic events, and you're like, I have none, because we tend to associate that with something big, or something,
Yeah.
monumental that's unforgettable. But a lot of times our
Mm,
trauma, we do, first of all, block it out, but also there's smaller events that we take on that we don't even realize. And I think that's why we're having this conversation, is because
mm,
we things stick with us even if we don't think they bother us. Like in school, for example,
yes.
when kids say mean things to each other, where it can be to the extreme of like bullying, constant bullying or whatever, but that stuff stays with us. And
Mm,
that's why we're talking about this, because what ends up happening is when we think we don't have it, then we don't do anything about it. So we're just constantly living from that state. And then when
yeah.
something does happen in our lives, I think that's when we begin to see, well, why am I reacting that way? Or why, we start to see how it can impact our relationships now, what we've dealt
Mm,
with in the
mm,
past, and haven't how we haven't dealt with it, or healed it, and then we're just carrying that around, so it's always with us.
yes. Yeah.
I don't, yeah.
And
So, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
think I think that's the way that I was. I mean, for a start, I didn't realize I had trauma. I was minimizing it because I thought what happened to me in my life, what I remembered,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't traumatic. I thought it's been nothing traumatic. I haven't been affected by anything. But also, there was a part of it, probably quite a lot of it, that I had sort of blocked out. So that comes in two ways, doesn't it? But also, like you say, what I was doing, and one of the reasons I started to look into therapy a long time ago was that I didn't know why I behaved the way I behaved. And so that is, like you were saying, I was playing out stuff that I didn't understand.
Right.
I almost say, looking back, I didn't recognize myself.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I just thought this is what I'm like, and I didn't really question it. But obviously, I was questioning it because that's why I wanted to actually find out a bit more. So it's really interesting, isn't it? Like you say, we play it out in different ways. And sometimes it is. And I think you said in your book, and I'm just trying to think of the words because I get it wrong, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
Violent outbursts. And is it, correct me if I get this wrong, disproportionate reaction. Did I say
Right.
that right?
Yeah, you did.
Ah, yeah, you got it right.
So yeah, were you going to continue? I didn't want to.
No, that's just like those were little bits that I picked out, and I thought, yes, I used to have violent outbursts. I definitely was overreacting. My reactions weren't, they didn't make any sense to me, and I think a lot of people will probably be living that life and
Mm-hmm.
actually feeling that way. So yeah, please explain, because they're words from your
Yeah,
book.
and
So
well, because I, it realized through my own experience, and a lot of times, we get, that's called like being triggered. You hear a
mm,
lot of
mm,
like, that's a common word that's being thrown around, like being triggered, and that's what that
mm,
essentially is. It's like when something is happening right now, and we're reacting in a way that really isn't proportionate to what the experience is. For example,
mm,
you blow
mm,
up at the pizza delivery salesperson, or the cashier, makes a mistake, and, you lose your patience, or whatever it might be. But it's like our reaction to life is disproportionate to actually what's going on, because we have all this pent up emotion, and we haven't dealt with any of the wounds that we have. So we're constantly operating from that wounded place, ready to
Yeah.
erupt at any moment. So, and,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we have a better handle on it, and sometimes we don't. Like, at some point, you're going to say, like, maybe say, like what you said, like, who am I, or who is this person, or who have I become? Because
Mm-hmm.
we don't realize it's happening to us, because number one, we're trying to protect ourselves. Our ego is trying to protect us and
Yeah.
say, oh, there's nothing wrong, or don't let it affect you, or, and stuff it down. And then we have society and influences coming at us saying, don't show any emotion, because, you don't want to appear weak. And, it's emotion makes people uncomfortable. And it's all these things working against us that keep us internalizing this trauma, and then we don't even realize it's become part of us. And that's why,
Mm.
how we're kind of moving through life. And for me, I realized that I was like showing up a certain way in relationships, and with these high expectations, and expecting, for somebody else to fill me up, when it wasn't coming from within, because I was like constantly in a wounded place. But I didn't
Mm.
know it. I didn't know I was wounded, and I thought I
Mm.
was okay. And so that is why we're talking about this, because it's like it's kind of
Yeah.
making it okay, or normalizing the fact that we all, you can say you don't have any trauma, and maybe, again, we're going back to comparing to other people, but that's another defense mechanism to protect yourself from saying,
Mm.
hey, you weren't hurt, so you don't have to do anything. But we all have been in different ways, and it can either happen in a moment, or it can happen over a lifetime. But it happens, and
Mm.
if we don't feel those feelings and work through them and then release them, then we're constantly in that. And that's why we're talking
Yeah.
about this. It's not just because we
That
love talking about healing and doing the hard stuff, because
we
it's
do.
not
No.
easy. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy at all. You're absolutely right, and this is why we do want to share this, because it is opening up that conversation that people might find really difficult, isn't it? And I know that's why maybe the main reason, but definitely part of the reason that you wrote your book, but
Yeah.
also why we're having these conversations, because it is difficult to talk about, isn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
difficult to know what to say, and to approach it. When I first went to a therapist, it took me a long, long time to actually go to someone. And then when I went, I didn't know what I was doing, and I lied, and it didn't really help. So it was a very long, slow process for me. So we're trying to help people do that a little bit easier and a bit quicker, aren't we? So,
Yeah.
but I'd like to bring you back a little bit. And you touched on it, and it's definitely in your book as well, about this goes on sometimes for generations. It's sometimes we copy, we feel it's the way that we are
Mm-hmm.
in our family life as well. And I just, and again, not blaming, not putting in anything there for parents and generations, and not to put any guilt trips on anybody, but to actually recognize that sometimes I see it with people I work with. I work with a lot of parents and children together, and I see behavior that actually there's sometimes anxiety around their children that they don't know where that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
There's fears that they have for their children in certain situations, and they don't know that actually they don't know why they feel like that, but they feel like it. And then they're projecting that unknowingly quite often onto their children as well, aren't they? So,
Yeah.
and I know that's something I've experienced that, and I know you have too.
Yeah, I've experienced that, and that is a form of, that's a traumatic experience for the child to experience. But that's a
Mm,
perfect
mm,
example of why. And it's, again, it's not to blame or to say there's anything wrong with us, because we've all been there. We've all, been on both sides of that. I mean, I don't know anybody who hasn't. So
no, no,
but this is why it's so important to talk about, and to bring out into the open, and to openly have these dialogues, and to have that communication, and you said the word, you kind of lied to your therapist. It's like, be honest with ourselves. But I can imagine myself doing that at some point too, because it's like, we don't want to admit
what a waste
anything's
of,
wrong with us. And there's
yeah, it's such a
nothing
waste
wrong
of
with
time.
us. That's the point. There's nothing wrong with us. We're convinced that there's something wrong with us if we're not feeling
Mm-hmm.
good about ourselves, or about something, or we've done something wrong. I mean, I'm constantly going through this in real time still. Like you said, I've healed, and that's why I wrote this book. It's healed and healing. It's an ing. It's always
Mm-hmm.
ongoing. So it's like that's why we're talking about this, going back to the projection of fears onto, like we're using that example as a parent child kind of thing, projecting your fears onto the child when
Mm.
it's really not. It's something maybe inside of us that we've not processed and healed,
Yeah.
that we're then projecting onto the, instead of letting the child like explore and open up and kind of learn from themselves. And I can say one thing as a parent is what I learned is, instead of me being the teacher, it like the roles were reversed. It was like I soon realized that I wasn't necessarily the one there to teach, that I was there to learn from my children too. So I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that is part of what our healing work does, is it allows us to open up to humility, and to be vulnerable, and to not be so ego driven and protected in that way of like shutting off. Because
Mm.
I mean, look what it does. That's why we're talking about that. That's why we're in this energy now, this constant energy of like, we're not only feeling our own experiences, but we're also feeling the collective trauma
It
too.
is,
So
isn't
it's like,
it? It's bigger.
if
Yeah.
it's not your own experience that is affecting you, it's the collective. And so, and yes, like, and I say this in the book too, and I believe this, that it's whatever happens to us isn't necessarily our fault. That's a broad general statement, but it's our responsibility to do the work to heal ourselves from whatever experiences affect us in a
Mm.
negative way. So
Yeah.
that's why we're talking about this. It's easier to talk about, I think, when we're sharing it like this, when there's other people that can say, hey, like, I feel this too. I want to talk about this. I haven't had an outlet to, share how I'm
Yeah.
feeling. And we try to, like you said, when you went to therapy at first, you weren't willing to open up, and then eventually you were. So I just think that's so courageous, Nadine. And for you to even
Well,
share that here.
it's a little bit silly, but that is the truth, isn't it? I've just been I'm trying to read and talk at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, and there's a few people join. I've just seen Mr. J join. Hi, so please do, if you've got any questions, put them in there. We will try and have a look at them, but we definitely will answer them. But you're absolutely right. It's just I want to share that because I was ashamed of that. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't. Years ago, I wouldn't have said anything about that. But now, again, I'm not the only one, am I? There's other people that probably go, oh my God, I did that, or
Yep.
I'm doing it now. And to know that it's okay to, just go, I don't really understand what's going on, but I know I need to do something. And then
Mm-hmm.
to talk about it. That's what we're doing. We're opening up this dialogue, aren't we? To say, please do talk to it. It doesn't have to be us. It can be to anyone, can't it?
Yeah.
So it's really, and I think as well, it's that kind of what I see a lot. And I'm not a parent myself, as most people know, but I feel that the way that I am,
Mm.
and when I was a nursery school teacher with children, there were natural things that came out in my behaviour that I thought, oh, where does that come from? And then looking back, they were family patterns
Yeah.
that I thought my feelings, my emotions, that the little children and the noise levels and things like that would bring
Yeah.
out in me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that experience in that way. And it was at that point in my life, I was quite well adjusted and it was fascinating. I questioned a lot of that. And I think what would be really nice if everyone gave themselves a bit of a break and just went like, however we behave, whatever we do, it is okay. But we can be open-minded, can't we? And
Yeah, we can
question.
be. Yeah.
Maybe after the event, just go, what was that all about? And see how we can learn from our actions and what we do. And I think you call it, it's that empowerment, isn't it?
It
And
is
what do you
empowerment.
call it? Is
Yeah.
it is it instead of being unconscious in our
It's being
behavior,
conscious
we
in
are
our behavior.
conscious?
Yeah,
Yeah.
being, and
Mm.
intentional. Somebody had a question, Mr. J. I was on a summit the other day where a therapist said, if your trauma is not showing up, don't go looking for it. And I disagreed. Your thoughts? I disagree with that too. I think that, and I'll let you
Good
say
question.
what you think, Nadine, as well. But I disagree with that too, because I think that it's our responsibility to understand it. We're not here to just coast through life. We're here to understand who we are and understand how we can connect and allow connect with our soul first of all. And I feel like that's a big part of healing. And I feel like we're here to allow our soul to have the journey it was meant to take, the contract we signed up for. And that's a whole nother conversation. But
Isn't it?
I feel like, and if we don't go searching for deeper understanding of ourselves, we're cutting ourselves or selling ourselves short, like not using this life to the fullest of its potential. That's, I mean, just
Mm.
my feelings in a nutshell, but I could probably say a lot more. What about you, Nadine?
Yeah, I've just seen another comment. I disagree, as it will surface at some point. Very
Yeah,
good point, because
exactly. It will find you.
it will,
Yep.
yeah, it will come up. That's exactly what happened to me. I thought I could keep it all down.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to keep it all down. That was my coping mechanism. It didn't work, but well, it did for a long time. But so that is a very good point. But I've got very mixed feelings about this. Like, do we poke it? Do we do this or don't we? Because without a doubt, there are, and I've said this to you, haven't I, Trish? That sometimes I just think, oh, I wish I wasn't so enlightened. I wish I wasn't on this path. Because sometimes I just go, oh, give me a break. That's the honest truth sometimes. But
Sometimes,
actually, that's just a little. I give myself a break
and it's
sometimes,
okay.
and
It's okay. We
it is okay. And that's why I wanted to share that. Sometimes I just go, oh God, enough, enough, enough.
I do that
But
too.
yeah, this is the thing, and I want everyone to know that they can do that. But this is a path. We are on it. We are questioning for a reason. We are doing what we're doing for a reason, aren't
Yeah,
we? And it's a good thing. It
it
is a
is a
really
good
good
thing.
thing.
I think that in going back to, it's gonna find you, or it's gonna pop up somewhere else. This is why we're talking about this. This is why I wrote my book and why I
Mm,
shared the stories I shared in the way that I shared them. And it's because we don't have to wait for a life altering event for our healing. We
yes.
don't have to wait to hit
Mm,
rock bottom for our healing.
that's the key.
We can do it actively. And
Mm,
yes, it can be like,
mm,
oh, why did I choose this path? Because once you're on this path, you can't like go back. But
mm.
it's I wouldn't have life of any other way. I wouldn't want to,
No.
I got to the point, for me it was a relationship ending and then realizing, why was I showing up this way as a pattern? So then
Mm,
I said, I don't want to, I want to understand why, and then change going forward, and have, because I want the deepest possible connection with myself and with others.
mm,
So I think
mm.
that's, I mean, one of the main reasons why we're here.
Yeah,
Why else are we here?
we're trying all the, like you
Yeah,
said, and that's conscious, isn't it? Making conscious
yeah,
decisions. We've got a little comment there. You push it down and it hits you from a different angle. So true.
yeah.
It will come at you sideways. It will come at you when you're not looking. That it will happen. You're absolutely right. And I
Mm.
think that's the thing, isn't it? To just feel that, well, it's not just, but to feel that we can make our choices, that we understand what we're doing, whatever the choices are. I made a conscious decision to be quite angry for a long time.
Mm.
I was doing it unconsciously. And then when I learned about it, I still wanted to be angry. And I've sort of worked through that a little bit. I still have my moments. But I felt different about choosing my reactions than it's just having them come up and I didn't understand it. So that's
Hmm.
something, I feel that's a
It
gift
is a gift
that I was given, or well, I don't
that
know,
you gave yourself because you
I
did the
found for
work.
myself. I
You
was I
did,
was just
yeah.
thinking about correcting myself.
That
Yeah,
is
you're
what,
absolutely right.
yeah. You gave
Yeah,
it to
but it
yourself.
is but it is that kind of, this is what we want to help other people with all the
Hmm.
time, isn't it? This is what we're driven to do, is to go, okay, I feel similar to you, not exactly the same, because no one's exactly the same, but I can understand. And actually, this is what we have done about it. And just that in itself might help people, mightn't it? But also that we have now gone on further to actually offer all of what we do, learned a lot more
Yeah,
about it, you with your lovely Reiki and your understanding and your compassion, to actually offer people that lovely safe space to talk, to get some healing, to actually work through things with someone who understands, because that's what we need a lot of the time, isn't it?
it
Someone that actually you can relate to.
it is. And also, to that point, it's also, sometimes we want to talk to somebody, but we don't know, we don't have the words. And so
Mm,
what,
mm,
both you and I have our own modalities that we use. Some of it, there's crossover in some of it, and but
mm,
it's
mm,
allowing whatever to come up
yeah.
and be able to put words to it, to be able to release what it is that we're
Mm,
holding on to energetically, because we don't
mm,
even, like you said, we don't even realize we're doing it. So
we
it's,
don't. We don't.
I just want to read this comment. If we don't heal the
Yeah, that
defense
looks like a good.
mechanisms we took on after trauma, they evolve and morph into our personalities, and then we take maladaptive behavior into life and relationships. Exactly. That's what we were
Yeah.
talking about earlier, I think, before Mr.
So
J
right.
was on
Yeah.
here. But this is why we're talking about this. So we're not,
Mm.
we end up, like I said, we don't have to wait till a life altering event like that. For me, it was the breakup. And then I was like, oh, why am I,
Mm.
what's my part in this, or what? But we can ask ourselves those questions ongoing.
Mm.
We can heal those defense mechanisms, and I think it's important to seek those out because they're subconscious. We don't know that they're there, so we're sometimes I'm getting chills, we may never even find them if we're not constantly seeking out. And it's
Well, there
hard.
is
It's
that.
not
Yeah.
easy to
No.
be,
No.
I'm smiling now, but it's freaking hard.
Mm. This is the
Like we've
thing,
talked
isn't it?
about it.
Yeah.
So
It
it's
yes, it can be, and as I say, sometimes I just want to get off it and come back again. But it's that kind of just knowing um,
mhm.
that we can choose a different way, and that whole idea of like you say, holding that space for someone and just giving someone the chance to talk, even if you don't understand. Because I didn't understand, and like I just said, I didn't cope with my therapy to start with in the best way, but I still did it and I still
You
learned from
did.
it. And that is the thing, you and I both, and I'm sure a lot of other therapists that are probably listening, and people don't have to know what it is. They don't have to know the
They don't.
questions. They don't have
No.
to know the answers. And actually sitting with that, not being afraid of actually feeling those feelings,
Hmm.
was a life changer for me, because actually I was so scared of what was going to come up for me. I had no clue, and I was really terrified. But as it happened, with a lot of hand holding and a lot of help, and that's ongoing still sometimes for me. I'm glad I've got lovely people around me, you included.
Hmm.
But it is that kind of, nothing's that bad. Where I was so scared, I was holding it at bay because I was so scared. And
Hmm.
again, I think, to bring it up and everything, we are strong, we are powerful, we can get through things.
We are. Yeah.
However, you describe in the book so many times, it breaks my heart sometimes reading it, how bad you felt.
Hmm.
But look at you, you're here, smiling. And that's the truth,
And
isn't it? We
you're
can feel
right.
bad,
Yeah, and I
but
think
it
we are
passes.
stronger than we think we are. So,
That's, yeah,
and it's so true. I have to remind myself that sometimes. So,
yeah.
um,
I think that's the
but
thing we need to
yeah.
remind ourselves.
I would love to continue this conversation, but I want
I
to keep
know.
it short. And we talked
Yes,
about
yeah,
bringing this into a Zoom where we can talk more openly, and other
yes,
people. I mean, we've been able to do well today with the questions that were asked. So I'm
yes.
glad,
Thank you,
you
everybody,
gave
for
us those
joining
questions.
in.
Those were It was brilliant, and
Mm,
really helped us help facilitate this conversation. So we want to invite everyone. We're going to be doing a Zoom session. I think we said July 13th.
yes, we've got a
On
date set. Yes, that would be
Yeah,
really
July
good. Yeah,
13th at the same time. We have to do it like kind of, it's not going to be like an evening time necessarily because you're in England and I'm in Toronto. So it'll be noon Eastern time, 5 p.m. British summer
5 p.m.
time.
my time. Yeah.
And
Mm.
so
But
check
it'll
what
give
time
people.
zone that, but we're going to put out the details. And if
We
you,
will. We
we're
will.
going to post this replay. So if you joined us and you want to join that conversation and just, have that chat with us, continue the conversation,
Mm.
leave us a comment. And because for some reason on Instagram, I don't think we can see these after the video ends, or the live
Yeah, yeah.
ends. But so appreciate everyone who joined us today.
Really, really do. And yes, it'd be so good, won't it, to have this chat. We're going to do it on Zoom, aren't we? So people can speak, which will be different if they want to. And also the fact that it can be private. So if people do want to say anything,
Hmm.
it won't be public like this is, which might be good for people. So we'd love to know what people think about that. So we're doing that on the 13th of July, aren't we?
Yes. Yep.
So that will be really good. I also just want to quickly say we're in the energy of the new moon at the
Yes.
moment.
I forgot to
So
say that at
if
the top.
yeah, if you're feeling anything at the moment, it's all good. The planets are doing what they're doing and everything, but it is a time that we can set our intentions. That's what I do. You probably have your own little practice as well.
Hmm.
But I keep it really simple, like with everything I do. And it's just thinking about, so today it might just be for me, I'm going to set an intention just to feel I keep it really simple.
Just to feel.
You know, just
I love that.
yeah, just it's
Yeah.
something really simple. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have. It can just be something really simple. But we're in the energy of the new moon, so that is supporting us. So you know, you can look it up on Google and everything if you want to go into new moon stuff or ask us directly. But just to tune in and just set an intention, and the universe will support you. The moon is there to support us at the moment, isn't it?
Always,
Which is
always. Thanks for
lovely,
bringing that
lovely.
in because I had planned on that and forgot. So I loved this
That's,
conversation. Thank
mm,
you everyone for being here, and
yes, thank
hopefully
you.
some of you will join us in our Zoom. What we're going to have,
Mm,
and I just want to
couple of
say real
weeks, isn't
quick,
it?
quick plug of the book. If you haven't gotten the book Love Me, if you haven't read it yet, go check. Oh yeah, check it out on
There it is.
Amazon worldwide. It's on indigo.ca, barnesandnoble.com. And yeah, thanks. Hopefully, hope and send us some comments when we post the replay. Would love to hear from you. So
Love
thanks
to, really
everyone.
love
And
to. Thank
you
you.
can find Nadine. Thank you for facilitating or initiating this conversation. Follow her on Calm Herself Method on Instagram, Calm Herself on Facebook, and she also has a YouTube channel as well. She has amazing meditations. I use them as part of my regular routine. So
Thank you.
thank you, Nadine.
Where can everyone find you apart from here? Then
My
where else can
website,
people
this is
find
trishcampbell.com. So thank you.
you? Brilliant.
Thanks,
Brilliant.
everyone.
Thank you
We'll
so
say
much.
bye
Thank you
for
everyone
now.
for joining in. I hope that's been helpful to you. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, too. Bye.
Bye.